Tell me if this has ever happened to you guys. Have you gone into a store, tried a fragrance, absolutely hated it, and then somehow later on it turned out that you liked the fragrance? Or vice versa. You tried it, you loved it, and then later you tried it and you hated it, and you're like, why? Why is it inconsistent? Why do I like it and then hate it? Why is it hot and cold? Why is it such a roller coaster of a relationship? Well, because testing fragrances is actually really intricate and complicated and a lot of kind of confounding variables that go into it. So I'm going to tell you guys today how to properly test out your fragrance to really determine whether you like it or not. And I'm telling you guys right now, it's a little bit of a commitment. There's no way of knowing on the first try. There's no magic formula. There's no way of trying it one time and knowing right away whether you like it or not. And I've kind of like figured out a way to go through the process and figure out how to really find out whether you like a fragrance or not. So I'm going to share these tips with you guys. If you're into fragrance videos, if this is something that's interesting to you, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a video. And let's get into how to properly test a fragrance. So first and foremost, of course, you're going to go into a store, you're smelling fragrances. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to take a blotter and you're going to take the fragrance and you're going to spray it, right? That's the first thing you can do. That's the only thing you can do at first. And that's perfect. That's exactly what you should do. You should spray it on the paper because that'll give you a first impression of the fragrance. That'll give you an idea of the scent profile, the structure, the category of fragrance, and you can go from there. Is this a category that you like? Is it fruity floral? Do you like fruity florals? Go from there, right? If it's a spicy fragrance and you hate spicy, that's immediately like process of elimination, it's out. But if it's a category of fragrance that you enjoy, work with it. So when you're in store, obviously spray it on a blotter. That kind of goes without saying. Another thing that you should do in store, if there is a cap, sometimes the tester bottles, they have a cap. Take that cap and smell it in the cap because that will give you an idea of what the dry down smells like. So the spray, the initial spray will be the opening. Sometimes it's amazing and the dry down is anticlimactic. Sometimes it's the opposite. The opening is harsh and synthetic, but the dry down is very pretty. So you have to try both. So ideally, if there's a cap, give the cap a sniff. One very important thing to remember when you do spray it on the piece of paper, give it a moment before you smell it. Don't spray and smell right away. And I am so guilty of this. I do this all the time. So do as I say, not as I do. Spray it and wait maybe 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, because that alcohol needs to evaporate for you to get the fragrance. If you spray it right away, it will kind of desensitize your nose and you won't really pick up the fragrance properly. So spray it and leave it for about 20 seconds, I'd say. Then smell it. And this makes a world of a difference. Then, when you're smelling things on blotters in store, make sure, no matter how tempted you are, don't smell more than 3 fragrances. And if you do, whichever ones you smell for fun, kind of disregard them because your nose when you're in store is overstimulated. There's a lot of fragrances from people that came in before you that have sprayed things in the air. There's a lot of scents in there. So, plus whatever you're spraying, your nose will kind of lose its receptors. It will stop picking up the fragrance properly. So try to limit yourself to 3. Hang on, my dog is making a lot of noise. Bernie, come, we're doing this again. So now you've sprayed it, you smelled it out of the cap, you've waited your 20 to 30 seconds for the alcohol to evaporate, and you've decided you don't hate it. That's a great starting step. You don't hate it. So we're gonna move on to the next step, test it on your skin. And sometimes, even if you do hate it, test it on your skin. And what I like to do is I like to spray it on my hand right here. I like to spray it because if I hate it after, let's say, 15 minutes, an hour, however long I can take it, if I still hate it, well, guess what? We wash our hands all the time, especially these days. So you're gonna be able to wash it off real easy if you spray it right here. So that's what I like to do when I test out my fragrances. I spray it on the skin, I spray it just on the back of my hand. And because the skin is very similar to the rest of your skin, it's a very similar texture to the rest of your body, on your wrist, wherever you spray it. Obviously don't spray it on your palm. It's a very different texture skin. It's sweaty. You know what I mean? Spray it where the skin texture is similar to where you would normally wear your fragrance, like your wrist, your elbows, your neck. But if you spray it on your neck and you hate it, well, you're gonna suffocate yourself. Spray it on your hand. Another key point to properly test your fragrance is to not test more than one fragrance at a time. If you have a fragrance here and a fragrance here and a fragrance here and here and here, and on your sweater and on the bottom of your sweater, and guess what? I've done it. I have done it more than once. It's a mishmash. It becomes a mishmash. They all kind of intertwine. It's not clear, and you can't really get a good idea of what each fragrance smells like. So make sure that if you're truly testing a fragrance, only test one fragrance at one time. Wear it a full time and test it. Don't spray one fragrance here, and then say, oh yeah, I'm properly testing this fragrance. So you're not properly testing it unless you give it a proper wearing dedicated to that fragrance only. The next step is to test it in colder weather and in warmer weather, because there's a lot of fragrances that perform very differently in cold weather and in hot weather. There are certain fragrances that I absolutely adore in the cooler weather that I can't bear in the heat because they become too cloying, and vice versa. There are some fragrances that perform wonderfully in the warmer weather that just kind of get lost in the cold. Like, for example, I absolutely love Alien Essence Absolue. There's a lot of tobacco fragrances that I really enjoy. Well, those ones I keep exclusive to the colder months because that's when they really get to shine and stand out and do their best job. However, fragrances that are lighter, like some lighter Chanel's, Number 5 L'Eau, as much as I love that fragrance, I absolutely adore it, I do find myself reaching for it more when it's hotter out because it's a lighter, kind of like a bitter, citrusy fragrance, and it just doesn't perform as well in the cold, and I wouldn't know it unless I tested it in both seasons. You gotta test it to find out, right? Give it a try when it's a little colder out, a little warmer out, then you'll know. To that point, in a similar fashion, you have to test the fragrance on clean skin, but also not so clean skin. And this might sound weird, but legit, there are fragrances that smell better on my skin when it's not the cleanest. And there are some fragrances that smell absolutely revolting when my skin is not the cleanest. So you have to try both. Lots of different factors, you guys, lots of different things that go into it, like what you've eaten that day, what's in your sweat, lots of different particles that interact and influence the way that the fragrance develops. So that way you get it on a clean slate, or you get it on, you know, whatever you've embellished your body with that day. Whatever you may have eaten will influence the scent of the fragrance. Whatever, like, I'm not saying sweat like dirty, but I mean like towards the end of the day, test a fragrance. Maybe not fresh out of the shower. When I mean not so clean skin, I don't mean don't shower for a week and then try it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying fresh out of the shower and not fresh out of the shower. Another thing is that you need to test it on clothing and on skin, especially, like, I'm gonna be 100% honest here, especially if you're working with a dupe, because I've noticed with a lot of dupe fragrances, they really smell harsh on skin and really nice on clothing. Also a lot of Mancera fragrances. I haven't tried any Montales, but a lot of Mancera fragrances are absolutely unbearable on my skin. There's like a harsh, synthetic, sharp note, but guess what? When I spray it on my clothing, it isn't there. So that's another thing to consider, is see how the fragrance develops on fabric as well as on your skin. And also test it in the day and in the evening. Similarly to when I said test it in the cold and in the heat, test it in the day and in the evening. Some fragrances may be very appropriate for the daytime, maybe very easy, light wearing to the office. Maybe you'll build some associations, some like scent memories with that fragrance. Maybe you'll wear it in the evening and you'll have an amazing date with somebody and you'll really learn to love a certain fragrance based on scent memories, and vice versa. You may wear it to a certain event, or a certain thing might happen in your life when you're wearing it and it'll build a scent memory and you might hate that fragrance. So That's another way that's very important to test out a fragrance. And all of these kind of different ways of testing it, really, I'm saying make sure you test the fragrance more than one time, even more than 5 times. Like even 5 times, it's important to wear it in different scenarios, in different environments, to really get a feel for it. Granted that you don't hate it upon first spray. If you hate it upon first spray, then don't even worry about it. But if you are okay with the fragrance, you take it home. Like, don't write it off just because you sprayed it one time and decided you don't like it. Like, really try to work with your fragrance. That being said, you may want to try that fragrance once and then come back to it in a little while. Maybe you want to come back to it in a few days, in a week, in a month, because your nose will develop, things will change. Maybe the fragrance itself will change, you know? So if you're not sure about it, well, try it, leave it, try it again in a little while, and then see how you feel about it. I've heard especially this happen with fragrances from the house of Le Labo, where people take it home because they blend everything in store for you. I actually haven't purchased a Le Labo fragrance. They're not my favorite house, but they do have some really nice fragrances. I know Santal 33 is extremely popular. Personally, I dislike it, but it's because it smells like straight up dill. And people tell me, oh no, I took it, I smelled like dill, took it home, wore it in a few months, and it was beautiful. And I want to believe that, and I guess it happens for people, right? Like fragrances change, it develops. Certain niche fragrances, certain fragrances with natural ingredients, they're gonna develop, they're gonna kind of morph as time goes on. I've heard about this happening countless times, so it's very important. If you don't like your fragrance or if you're not sure about it, give it a try, put it away, try it again in a couple weeks or a couple months. And we're down to my last suggestion of how to test your fragrance, and this one's very, very important, and it is, don't overspray your fragrance the first time that you wear it. You will potentially ruin it for yourself because it's a new scent, it's something you're unfamiliar with, you're gonna overload yourself and you're gonna kind of resent that fragrance potentially. So make sure that you do not overspray the fragrance the first time that you wear it. Like, I would say give it 2 sprays to 4 sprays, maybe 5 if it's a lighter fragrance, max. Don't go 20 sprays. Like, there's fragrances that I easily wear 20 sprays of, but I'm familiar with the scent, my nose is used to it, and like, I understand it. The fragrance and I, we get each other, and it works. You have to build up to that point. You can't like right away be like, yeah, I'm gonna hit this with 20 sprays. Like, it could be catastrophic. So yeah, I would say probably between 2 to like 5 sprays max first wearing. And those are all of my suggestions on how to test your fragrance properly. Let me know what you guys do. What's your trend? Are you the kind of person that will spray it once and be like, ugh, no, I'm done with this? Let me know. It's fun. It's fun to see how people test out their fragrances. Let me know if you guys have any special tips and tricks on how to properly test out your fragrances. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.